Okay, so good evening, everyone. Welcome to the course CH58 NEC 25, Basic Environmental Engineering and Pollution Abatement. So my name is Niketa, and I'm a PhD student at IIT Madras. So since this is the first class, so why don't we start with general introduction? So can you all tell me your names and where you're from?
Hello, ma'am.
Hello.
Good evening, ma'am. This is Pinak Gohil from Ahmedabad, Gujarat.
Okay. Next.
Good evening, madam. Myself Venkateswar Raula from Vishakhapatnam, Andhra Pradesh,
Hello.
madam.
Hi.
Hello.
Yeah.
Good evening, madam. Myself Venkateswar Rao from Vishakhapatnam, Andhra Pradesh, madam.
Okay. Hi, Venkateshwar.
Hi, ma'am.
Good evening, ma'am. I'm
Good evening.
myself Dev Khanna from Chennai, ma'am.
Good evening, ma'am. This
Good
is
evening.
Dhiraj Devarma from Tripura, Agartala.
Hi, Dheeraj.
Hi, ma'am.
Good evening, ma'am.
Good
Myself
evening.
Sagar Khan. I am from Pune.
Hi, Sagar. Next.
Good evening, ma'am.
Good evening.
Myself Subhranshu Shekhar Sethi from Fakirmon University, Baleshwar.
Hi, Shubhanshu.
Hi, ma'am.
Next.
Good evening, ma'am. Sana Dharlakshmi from Usmania University, Hyderabad.
Hi, Sana.
Hi, ma'am.
Next.
Good evening, ma'am. This is Subhalakshmi Mahapatra from Fakirman University, Odisha.
Hi, Subhalakshmi.
Hi, ma'am.
Next person.
Good evening, ma'am. Myself,
Good evening.
Mohima Vibhusita Biswar from Pokemon University, Baleshwar.
Hi, Mahima.
Hi, ma'am.
Next.
Good evening, ma'am. Myself,
Good evening.
Kajal Singh from Fakirwan University.
Hi, Kajal. Okay, I think everyone's introduction is done, so we will move to the course. So, one second. Yeah, so this is going to be the first class. In CH58, basic environmental engineering and pollution abatement. So, before starting, I'll tell you how this class is going to be. So, I hope all of you must have seen the video lectures for this week. Have you all seen them?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, good. So, I will be explaining some concepts from the video lectures that you saw. I will be just giving you a summary, like a refresher. If you have some doubts in those topics, you can ask them. And then we will be solving some questions. Is that fine?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, great. So, before we start, I just want to ask you a very general question. So, what is environment?
Surrounding nature.
Surrounding
Where we
nature.
are.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, environment includes nature or just nature or anything else too?
Nature and living organism.
Okay. So, only nature and living organisms. What about the non-living organisms? I mean, non-living beings.
All living means equestrial as well as terrestrial.
Okay, so environment means anything and everything that surrounds us. So anything and everything that surrounds you constitutes your immediate environment. So, like if you are sitting in a room and you are surrounded by walls, that room becomes your environment. That is your immediate environment. And the air that is inside the room, and that also constitutes a part of your environment. So there are some environmental media that you have to know. For example, air. Air is a medium, okay, where we can, like if you maybe spray a perfume, it travels to a distance, right? It travels through air. So air is the medium for the perfume to travel. Similarly, we have water. Water is also a medium. So if you put some salt in one place in a river, that salt can travel and reach another place in some time. So that water is also a medium. And similarly, soil. So soil also can, if you pollute water and groundwater, that pollutant can reach the soil also. So soil is also a medium which can be polluted. So these three are the media that we will be focusing on, and these three are prone to pollution. Okay. Now, why are we concerned with pollution? Can someone answer this?
Because it affects our human health and animals' health.
Yeah, it indirectly or directly affects our health. So that is why it is important to prevent pollution in the first place. But if prevention is not possible, at least we have to mitigate and manage it. Okay? So, coming to the name of this course, environmental engineering. So, what is environmental engineering? Any answers?
Ma'am, it is related to study of environment like pollution and healthcare.
Okay. We study the environment and then what do we do after studying the environment?
We take necessary actions about how
Exactly.
to control
Yeah. So
the
we
pollution, contamination.
so we protect the health of the environment. That is one goal of environmental engineering. Can you guess the second goal? Why do we need environmental engineering? First of all, we have to protect the environment. That is number one. Second, okay, so have you all heard of this term called sustainable development?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, what is sustainable development?
Means development of any region in such a way that it doesn't create any harm to our environment.
Okay, that's partially right. So, sustainability or sustainable development means meeting the needs of the present in terms of energy and food, while also preserving the natural resources and biodiversity for the future. So there are three major components of sustainability or sustainable development. So the first one is society. The second one is environment. The third one is economy. So all these three are important components. You cannot have societal development as well as environmental development without economy. Without economy, people will be poor, so there won't be any development as such. But if you focus only on economy, there won't be any there will be environmental degradation. So it is important that there is societal development along with economic development and also protection of the environment. So all these three should coincide. So this area where all the three will coincide is your sustainable development. So moving on. So now that you're clear about what is environment, what is sustainable development, can you tell me what are the components of the environment? What are the various components of environment?
Environment consists of four main components, that is hydrosphere, lithosphere, biosphere, and atmosphere.
Okay, so these can be broadly classified into two components, like someone in the beginning of the class just told me, living and non-living, right? So biotic, it includes all living beings. And abiotic, it includes all non-living beings. Okay, so we'll come back to this later, but first we will see what is called waste. What is waste?
Any unwanted materials is termed as waste.
Okay. So that is anything that doesn't have any use in the future, and which needs to be discarded. Comes under the category of waste. Alright, so there are various types of waste. So we can classify waste based on the nature, and also based on the phase. So based on the nature of waste, we can have hazardous waste and non-hazardous waste. And based on the phase, can someone tell me what is the classification?
Madam, maybe solid, liquid, and gas.
Exactly, correct. So solid waste, liquid waste, and gaseous waste. So, can someone tell me what is hazardous waste?
Ma'am, hazardous waste will be defined as the waste which is toxic in nature as well as corrosivity properties, reactivity, and possesses combustion is termed as hazardous waste.
Combustion. So combustion happens after a material gets ignited, right? To combust, the material should be able to ignite first. So only after it catches fire can combustion happen. So it is important that the material, to be a hazardous waste, a material should be toxic, reactive, ignitable, and should also be corrosive. So when a material is all this, it definitely poses substantial potential threat to public health. Or environment in general. So hazardous waste is something that possesses a potential threat to the environment or the public health, and which is toxic, reactive, ignitable, and corrosive. So coming to prevention and control of pollution. So how can we prevent pollution? Okay, tell me which will be easier, preventing or control?
Preventive is easier.
Why?
If we take preventive measures, control करने का जरूरी नहीं मैडम. There is no need of controlling that.
Yeah. So when we can prevent the pollution itself, then there is no need to control. So if there is no pollution, then there is no need to mitigate it, right? So it's better to prevent it rather than spend energy and efforts to control it later. So what are the various ways in which we can prevent the pollution? So prevention can be done at the source. How do we do it at the source? Suppose you have a factory which is generating a lot of gases, harmful gases like SOx or NOx. So how do you control them? How do you prevent at the source?
Using unit processes like scrubbing.
Yeah. But even before we generate this gas, can we do something to prevent the pollution? Yeah, anybody else? Sagar?
Neutralization of the gases.
You're not audible.
Like
By selecting the materials which will not give much harmful gases,
Yeah, so
we
at
can
the source, while selecting the raw materials itself, we can make sure that we avoid. Yeah, by selecting the raw materials, we can just avoid certain kind of materials which could cause pollution. Like, for example, you have a coal power plant, and if there is sulfur in the coal, then obviously it's going to get oxidized, and then it is going to come out as sulfur dioxide. So we need to ensure that the coal that we procure is free from sulfur. So similarly, when we procure raw materials, it is important to be careful and make sure that whatever causes pollution is out of it. Okay. And then we can use advanced processes, specific processes, which can not cause the pollution. We can maybe design equipments in such a way, or we can even go for um, alternate resources. So, like if we are going to use renewable energy, it is definitely going to cause even more pollution. So we can go for some. If we are going to use non-renewable sources of energy, it is definitely going to cause pollution. So it's better to look for alternate resources, alternate sources of energy, which will minimize the pollution. Okay, so moving on, let's talk about wastewater treatment. Can someone quickly tell me what are the various steps in wastewater treatment?
Ma'am, there are several stages through which the wastewater passes before discharging or reusing. So first one is the preliminary treatment.
Yeah.
Second one is the primary treatment. Third one is the secondary treatment with biological processes, and final process is the ultraviolet filtration,
Yeah, that comes under which category?
tertiary treatment or advanced treatment.
Yeah. Okay. So pre-treatment is used for removing floating objects and materials which will cause operational problems in the next steps of wastewater treatment. And primary treatment, we generally go for sedimentation, flocculation, etc., which will remove 60% solids and 35% BOD. Now, what is BOD? We'll see that later. The secondary process removes about 85% solids, 85% BOD. And solids. So by the time we come to advanced treatment, about 95% BOD is removed. And so are solids, nitrogen, and phosphorus. Okay. So next, coming to ecology. What is ecology? What is ecology?
Study of ecosystem.
Okay. What does that involve? What does ecology mean? What do we study? Okay, so it is the study of the interrelationship between the living beings in a particular physical environment. So it is the study of the relationship between the living beings in a given environment, and there are various levels of organization. So we can organize the environment into various levels. So the first one is the species or individual level. So what is the species? What is species? A species is a group of similar organisms that can breed and produce a fertile offspring. So the second level is population. The population means a group of organisms of the same species that breed and live in the same area. The third one is community. So it is an assembly of different populations that live together. Then we have ecosystem. What is an ecosystem?
It is a medium of both living and non-living components.
Yeah, so it is a group of organisms that live in a place with the non-living environment. Okay. Then we have a biome. What is a biome?
It is a compilation of ecosystem that makes biome.
Yeah, so it is a group of ecosystems with the same climate and dominant communities. Okay, and then we have the biosphere. So, a biosphere is a group of biomes where both living and non living exist. It's a group of biomes. So, at the base, we have the species, then we have a population, and then we have a community. Now, a group of organisms that live in a place along with the non living environment constitutes an ecosystem. And a group of ecosystems constitutes a biome, and a group of biomes constitutes a biosphere. Is that clear?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, so we have different components of our ecosystem. So first one is the living or the biotic component. The second one is the energy component, which is the dominant source of energy that we all get. Which is the predominant natural source of energy that we get.
Sunlight.
Yeah. The sunlight is the source of all energy, and we all are we all have the food we eat is like we get that from the sun. So the solar energy is converted into the energy that we use. So we will see that in the next part. And then comes the abiotic component. So the abiotic component consists of non-living things like soil, air, water, etc. So how does this ecosystem operate? So the sun's energy is received, and this energy is used by autotrophs to synthesize organic materials. And who does this? Who synthesize use
Trees.
trees or autotrophs? So this is carried out by autotrophs, who are also called primary producers. Now the second stage is consumption of these autotrophs or primary producers. By living beings which are known as consumers. Now this is secondary. What is the name of these living beings that feed on primary producers?
We
Sorry?
human beings.
Okay. Is it human beings alone or
Microbes.
microbes? Okay, some of them. But mostly it is living beings which eat plants, right? It can be human beings, it can be animals. So, living beings which eat the primary producers are called heterotrophs. So, after the death of heterotrophs, what happens? What happens when heterotrophs and autotrophs die?
Decomposition takes place.
Yes. So whatever complex organics were produced by the autotrophs and heterotrophs, they will be degraded, decomposed, and reconstituted into their elemental forms. So how do autotrophs convert sun's energy into organic materials? What process do they follow?
Photosynthesis.
So during photosynthesis, plants take up carbon dioxide and water, and in the presence of sunlight or energy, they convert the carbon dioxide and water into what is this?
Glucose.
Yes, into glucose and oxygen. So whatever energy is there, it is gets stored as glucose. Now, when they need energy, this glucose is broken down, and it is. I mean, it gives out energy. So I'll write that down. So during respiration, there is breakdown of glucose to release energy. and this energy is used for cell growth and metabolism. Okay, next, coming to food chain. What is food chain? What is food chain? So it's a chain where one organism eats the other organism, right? But at the beginning of every food chain is sunlight or solar energy. So from this, there is photosynthesis. And photosynthesis is done by plants and algae. And these plants and algae are eaten by herbivores. Herbivores are organisms that feed on plants. And herbivores are eaten by carnivores. And the smaller carnivores are eaten by the bigger carnivores. And this is how energy is transferred. So at the beginning, you have solar energy, which has a density of 4,000 kilocalorie per meter square cube. Now this energy comes down to 40 when it comes to the energy stored in vegetation or plants. So when herbivores eat these vegetation and plants, about 4 kilocalorie remains, and that comes down to just 0.4 in carnivores, and in other carnivores it goes down to 0.04. So much of energy gets converted into a very small value because there is transfer from one level to another level in the food chain. Okay, now that we have seen what is food chain, can you all tell me what is a food web?
It is also interconnection between this species, but in a multi-direction.
Yeah,
I mean, it is not in a single direction.
basically it is interconnected food chain. Okay, so moving on. What are ecosystem services? What are ecosystem services? So these are just goods and services offered by the nature. Like in this case, for example, if you have soil, so that itself is a service on which we can plow, we can do agriculture. So all this is provided by the biodiversity that we live in. This also includes water, good air, etc. So there are some drivers which can affect the ecosystem services. So the first one is the direct driver. So these drivers are nothing but something which can bring a change in the environment. So the first one is land use, how we use the land, and if there is a species removal or introduction of a new species. Climate change, natural and biological events. And then we have indirect drivers. Can be change in the demographic. Demographic refers to the local population in an area. Some economic reforms can also change the environment. Innovation in science and technology. So all these are indirect drivers which can indirectly affect our ecosystem. So if our ecosystem is affected in some way, then what do? We turn to ecosystem restoration. So there are three types of ecosystem restoration. The first one being passive restoration. So what do we do in passive restoration? What happens in passive restoration? We just allow the natural recovery to happen. We don't intervene, so we just allow nature to take its course and bring the original condition back. Then there is active restoration. So what happens in active restoration? We rehabilitate and stabilize the environmental media. For example, we have water or soil that is damaged, then we rehabilitate and restabilize it into its original conditions. So that is active restoration. And the third way in which we can do it is by restoring the plant community. So this can be done by revegetation or planting the trees back which had become extinct or which had died. So we can replant those trees. So that is the next one. Okay, so these restorations should be done when the environment is degraded. And what causes environmental degradation? Human activities. So if there is inferior quality of resources because of human activities, then we say that the environment is damaged. So how much damage has happened? We have various measures for that. The first one being bioconcentration factor. So before that, can someone tell me what is bioconcentration?
It is a ratio of concentration of specific organism upon its concentration in the whole environment into 100. That means the amount of or content we can say.
Okay, that's the bioconcentration factor that you're seeing. But before that, can you tell me what is bioconcentration? Okay, so bioconcentration means that imagine there's a fish in the sea. So the sea is polluted with mercury. Okay, so imagine there is 3 milligram per liter of seawater, 3 milligrams of mercury per liter of seawater. Okay, and the fish drinks seawater every day. So what happens is for every liter of seawater that the fish drinks, it is also intaking 3 milligrams of mercury with every liter of seawater that it is drinking. So over time, what happens? This 3 milligram of mercury will deposit inside the fish's body. So imagine this fish. So over time, it will deposit inside the fish's body. And then as it drinks more and more polluted water, it keeps on accumulating in its body. So now what happens is the concentration of mercury inside the fish is much higher than the concentration in
Water body.
yeah. So this is bioaccumulation. So when you have an organism which is exposed to a pollutant in a given environment, when it consumes the pollutant, its concentration inside the body of the organism increases when compared to the outside environment from where it originally came. And then there's this bioconcentration factor, which you said correctly. So it is the ratio of the pollutant concentration in the organism to that in the environment. So we write bioconcentration factor as C org divided by C environment. So this C organism means the concentration of the pollutant in the organism. So how do you express this concentration in the organism? It's the weight of the pollutant in milligrams divided by the weight of the organism, which is in kilograms. Is this clear? So your C org is nothing but milligrams of pollutant divided by kilograms of organism. The weight of the pollutant divided by the weight of the organism is your C org. Now this divided by C environment. So this is milligrams of pollutant per liter of water, or maybe if you're talking about air, it can change to meter cube. So this is nothing but the concentration of the pollutant in water. Is this clear?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So when you express this as a ratio, so this can be the units for this. The units for this is in terms of liters per kilogram. Because when you put this as a ratio, milligrams will get cancelled, milligram and milligram will get cancelled, and liter will come to the top. So that will give you liters per kg. So when it comes to bioaccumulation, not every organism is prone to it. And certainly not every pollutant So these two are important. So when we talk about bioaccumulation, not every organism has the capability to bioaccumulate the pollutant. Some organisms may thrive in a highly polluted environment. Maybe that pollutant does not affect the organism, and some organisms cannot survive even if the concentration of the pollutant is very less. So not every organism can bioaccumulate, and similarly not every pollutant can bioaccumulate. For example, like you have mercury is a heavy metal which is highly prone to bioaccumulation. Let's talk about some other metals or non-metals which don't tend to bioaccumulate in our body. For example, you have sodium. Sodium, we take sodium and then it doesn't accumulate in our body. So not every organism can bioaccumulate and not every pollutant can bioaccumulate. And by the way, sodium is not classified as a pollutant. I just gave you an example. So the level of bioaccumulation will depend on
Ma'am, what are the other pollutants that can be bioaccumulated?
Yeah, like we can have heavy metals that definitely bioaccumulate, and then there are antibiotics that can bioaccumulate, skincare products, chemicals that we put on the skin. There are like especially the chemicals that we use in the sunscreen. So that can bioaccumulate. We can have parabens. Parabens can bioaccumulate, and Yeah, there are so many organic chemicals that tend to bioaccumulate in the human body and then cause problems once they reach a certain level. So we'll talk about that in the coming sections, like how, when do we say that bioaccumulation is bad? When do these chemicals start affecting us? Like at what level? So initially, if the level of bioaccumulation is just zero point 0.1 milligrams, maybe it won't affect. But if it becomes 1,000 or 10,000 milligrams, then it will definitely affect us. So how do we determine when what concentration is going to affect us? That we will see in the coming sections. So for now, talking about the levels of, what are the, what the bioaccumulation depends on. First of all, it depends on the rate of uptake. So coming back to this fish that we saw here, if this fish is only going to drink about 1 liter of water every day, then it is going to approximately have maybe 3 milligrams accumulation in a day, approximately. Some of it may also be excreted by the fish's body, but assuming that most of it is getting bioaccumulated, so if it drinks 1 liter of water, it will approximately have 3 milligrams of mercury in its body. Now, if it's going to drink maybe 10 liters of water, then maybe it will have approximately 30 milligrams per day. So that's what. The level of bioaccumulation depends on the rate of uptake or the rate at which you are going to consume the polluted stuff. And then the mode of uptake. This is also important. So there are three pathways by which a pollutant can enter your body. The first one being ingestion. Like in this fish's case, it is directly drinking the water, so it is ingesting the pollutant directly and it is going into its stomach. So that is ingestion. The second one is inhalation. So inhalation is where you breathe in polluted air which contains pollutants. So it can enter your lungs and deposit there, or worse, it can mingle in your bloodstream and then deposit in your liver. So that is also there. And then the last one is through dermal contact. What is dermal contact?
In contact with skin.
Yeah, so for example, there are people who work in mines, right? Mines or places where they are exposed to harsh chemicals. People who work in industries, people who work in mines where heavy metals are mined from. So they, if they don't wear protective clothing, then it is highly possible that these metals or these pollutants can directly come into contact on the skin, and through the skin they can enter the bloodstream. So these are the three ways in which the pollutant can be uptaken and enter our body. And then a little bit of how much bioaccumulation can happen will also depend on what is the biotransformation potential of the body. Now, biotransformation procedure means like when we take pollution in the form of ingestion, inhalation, or dermal contact, the first thing that will happen is it will enter our bloodstream. And from the bloodstream, it will go to our liver. So there in the liver, sometimes these pollutants are broken down. Like, for example, we have certain antibiotics. So antibiotics are not generally broken down, but partially they can be broken down into simple compounds and then they can be denatured. But most of the pollutant that enters the liver stays there. So the ability of the liver to break down the pollutant varies from organism to organism, it even varies from person to person. Someone who's young can maybe break down the pollutant far more easily than someone who's aged and old. So that completely depends on your liver's ability. So that is why we say that someone who drinks a lot of alcohol, they get liver damage. Why? Because alcohol is a toxin, and the more it accumulates in your liver, the bad it is. Like your liver can only do so much. So once it's reached its capacity, it cannot break down the alcohol anymore, and it just stays there, damaging your liver. So this is the last factor, biotransformation potential. And this also has another component, the hydrophobicity of the pollutant. What is hydrophobicity?
Ma'am, the tendency of any pollutant that it doesn't come in contact with the water is
Are you talking about immiscibility here?
ma'am, it means it stays away from the water, the pollutant I'm talking about.
Okay, that's immiscibility. Hydrophobicity means that it, like when you have a pollutant, it tends to dissolve more in, it tends to dissolve less in water compared to another solvent or maybe another media. Right? For example, you have some heavy metals, say chromium. So chromium may not readily dissolve in water, but once it comes into contact with soil, it will form bonds with the soil particles and stay there. And then, no matter how much water you put over it, the chromium that is in the soil will not dissolve in the water and it will not move from that place. So that is hydrophobicity, the ability to repel water or to be distracted, to not be attracted towards water. Okay, so why are we talking about this? It's because the more hydrophobic that the pollutant is, chances are that it tends to stay in your body more. Why? Because our body is made of components which are not water. Our body is made of fats. So if your pollutant that is coming inside our body, that is going to be more hydrophobic. It means it won't dissolve in water as easily as it dissolves in fat or oil. Then that's dangerous, right? Right or wrong?
Right, madam.
So if the pollutant is going to be readily soluble in fats rather than water, what happens is it will tend to accumulate in our body and stay there. So no matter how much water we drink, no matter how much our kidneys function, it's not going to change anything. It's just going to be deposited there. Right. So the biotransformation potential and the hydrophobicity of the pollutant are important factors. And then we have something called biomagnification. Can you elaborate on this? Can someone talk about it? What is biomagnification? It's closely related to bioaccumulation that we saw.
I think it is related to bioconcentration.
Bioconcentration. How?
Ma'am, the name magnification suggests that something is like magnified, means increasing quantity. So maybe the concentration increase, something like that.
Yeah, can you tell me how that is?
Like, ma'am, it will go on increasing with several steps. Like it involves like several species.
Yeah.
Maybe
So biomagnification is when you have one organism, like take the example of the fish. So the fish already has somewhat a bit of mercury in its body. So what happens when this fish is consumed by humans? And humans don't just consume one fish, right? So maybe in a lifetime, a person may eat hundreds of fishes, and all of them have chromium or mercury in it. What happens then? And each of these
I'm
fishes have
suppose
about 30 milligrams
I'm
of
suppose the fish has 3 mg by L concentration. If humans may eat,
Are you sure the concentration inside the fish is 3 milligram per liter?
ma'am, that can be varied, but I'm just taking an example.
That's the concentration of the mercury around the fish, right? 3 milligrams per liter is the concentration of mercury which is around the fish, which is in the water that the fish is drinking. Once it enters the body of the fish, it will increase in concentration, and that we tell in terms of the weight of the fish, which is in kilograms, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. So what happens to an average person who maybe eats 20 to 30 kilos of this fish?
If
What
an
then?
average human consumes that fish, maybe two or more, so the concentration of that maybe goes up to 60 mg by kg or
Yeah. So imagine this number in the lifetime of the human being. Like what happens throughout a span of maybe 60 years, 70 years? How much mercury will be accumulating in the human body because of this? So that is biomagnification or magnification of the pollutants concentration when um, when a smaller organism gets eaten by a bigger organism. So another example will be a plankton. So planktons are small living creatures found in the sea, and they get eaten up by the small fishes. So the small fish gets eaten up by the large fish. The large fish gets eaten up by the human beings. So when this happens, a very small quantity of the pollutant will multiply over time. As the food chain progresses, the concentration of the pollutant is going to increase. Okay, coming to the next topic, risk. What is risk?
The probability of an event that will cause something potential trait.
Yeah, it is the probability of occurrence and the intensity of the damage. So it's not just probability of occurrence, it is also how much damage a particular hazard can cause. Likelihood is probability, likelihood and intensity of damage. Now, what's a hazard? When we say something is hazardous, what do we mean?
Hazard is harmful to our body or nature.
Sorry?
Hazard is harmful to our body or nature. Any object which is harmful to our body or
Yeah.
nature.
So when we say something is hazardous, we mean that it has the ability to cause damage.
Yeah.
So when we have something that is hazardous, it is very important to analyze the risk that it could cause. So risk analysis means we estimate the probability of a hazardous substance to affect us. So it is nothing but estimating the probabilities. And the expected outcomes for an identified risk. So this involves risk assessment, evaluation, and management alternatives. So when we have something which is hazardous, we can get affected by it only if there is exposure. So what is exposure? Exposure is the intensity or the intensity of the substance to cause harm multiplied by its frequency, or how frequently we come in contact with the substance, and duration, how long do we stay in contact with this substance. So all these three things together will give us how much is the exposure. Then coming to chronic daily intake. Or CDI. So the CDI is, it is a ratio actually. So this is CE into RI into EF into EB divided by body weight into average time. So the chronic daily intake will tell us what is the limit, what is the daily limit which could cause some adverse effect. So it is given in milligram per kg per day. Now here CE is the exposure concentration. RI is the intake rate. So this is liters per day and the exposure concentration is in milligrams per liter. EF is the exposure frequency. How many days in a year do we get exposed to this? ED is the duration of the exposure. It means for how many years do we stay in contact with the pollutant. For example, some mine worker goes to work for maybe 300 days out of 365 days in a year. So it means his exposure frequency is 300 divided 300 days per year. Now exposure duration is how many years does he work in that mine? Maybe 20 years or 30 years. So that is the exposure duration. This is given in years. And then the body weight. This is in kilograms. And then average time. Averaging time. This is in days. So then we have dose. Dose is how many milligrams of pollutant per kg of body weight per day can cause harm. So this is, it doesn't necessarily have to cause harm. It is just a measure. Like if the dosage goes beyond a certain threshold limit, only then it becomes harmful. But dose is just going to tell us how much pollutant are we accumulating in our body per day. So this is a ratio of the mass of contaminant. This is in milligrams. Divided by the body weight in kilograms. So then we have the dose response curve, which is a plot between the dose versus the response that the dose can cause. So the curve is usually in the shape of S. So when you have lower dose, the response is minimum. But as you keep on increasing the dosage, the response or the diseases or the effects that can be felt in your body because of the dosage can increase as you keep on increasing the dosage. So that's what happens. And then there is some saturation. Beyond this point, no matter how much dosage you increase, the response is going to be the same. So the response in this case can also be death. So this will tell us how much is the, this is just a plot between the response and the dosage. Okay, so then there's another similar curve like this. So that is also like this, like on the x-axis we have the dosage in milligrams per kg liter, kg day. And on the y-axis we have probability of adverse health effect. Now, when we say probability of damage or probability of an adverse health effect, we mean risk. So this plot is quite similar to this. On the y-axis we had response, and in this plot on the y-axis we have the probability of the response. So here, when the dose is low, what is the probability? Like, for example, if the dose is only here, is there any probability of health effects? Can it affect our health if the dose is low?
The probability will be less.
Exactly. But as we keep on increasing the dose, the probability that it will cause some health effect will increase. So if you start with only 0, then there is less probability. But if you come to this point, again, there is not much health effect that is going to occur. So there is 0 probability. But if you increase the dose even more till this point, then what happens? There is a slight response. Okay, it's like very small. It's just going up. So beyond this limit, if you increase the dosage any further, there is going to be a response. So this level where there is no response, and the level at which if you increase any more, there is going to be definitely a probability of a risk. That level is called your threshold or your threshold dose. So it's just at the threshold of causing some damage. So that's why it's called the threshold dose. Now this point here where there is no effect at all, like the dose is quite low to generate a response. So this point is called no observed adverse effect level, or NOAEL in short. So this point where there is no effect observed is called the NOAEL, and this point beyond which there is going to be some effect is called the threshold dose. Is that clear?
Yes, ma'am.
Now there is one more concept called reference dose, or RFD in short. So the reference dose is the NOAEL divided by the uncertainty factor multiplied by the modifying factor. So the reference dose is the point from which the potential effect at other doses can be gauged. So if you know this reference dose, you can easily tell how the response is going to be at a slightly higher dosage. Maybe here. So once you know the reference dose, you can use the NOAEL and you can just divide it by certain factors, and with this you can predict what is going to be the effect. So the uncertainty factor is it's actually a factor which can change within the population. So if it is the same population, then from person to person it can vary. So uncertainty factor is 10 for the same population. And it needs to be multiplied by another 10 for species to species difference. Like if it is tested on mice or rat, and if you want to know this factor for human beings, you need to multiply it with another 100. And you also need to multiply it with 10 if the data is subchronic. So subchronic means it is below the chronic levels. Okay, and then we have one very important factor, which is the LD50 or lethal dose 50. So can someone tell me what is LD50?
Lethal dose 50,
What does it mean?
which means we have to put dosage on 100 miles, rats, and count the time for how much time they kill. Like how much time they taken for kill. We measure the count value of the killer.
Do we count? Do we check the time?
Not check the time. We count the dose, not time.
Exactly. So, like you said, if there are 100 mice and we are giving, say, maybe 10 milligrams of some toxin or some chemical which is going to harm those mice. And at this dosage of 10 milligrams per kg, maybe about 5 mice are going to die. Then it is not a very significant thing. But if you increase the dosage to maybe 100 milligrams per kg, and out of 100, maybe 50 mice die, which means 50% of population is dead. So that concentration is your LD50 or the lethal dose 50. So this can be calculated from the dose response curve for cumulative response. Like if it's not the individual response, but response in terms of how many people dead. I'll redraw it here. number of deaths. So as you increase the dosage, there is going to be an increase in the death. And then there could be some part of population which is unaffected by any increase in death, any increase in dosage. So we are only concerned about 50% of the population which will die. So that is going to tell us what is the lethal dose. That is the dose at which 50% of the population is going to die. So the other half is like it's not that affected, so we don't bother about that. Okay, so like I said before, I said we will have a question and answer session where I'll be asking the questions and you are expected to answer me. So the first question is, what are the 3 pillars of sustainability? We just discussed about this in the beginning of this class. Can you tell me what are the 3 pillars of sustainability?
Society, environment, and economy.
Can you repeat the third one?
Economy.
Yeah. Society, environment, and economy. Okay. So now I'll give you 4 options. The first one is species. Second option is community. Third option is population. Fourth option is ecosystem. Okay. Now tell me, what is the term which is used to describe a group of organisms that live and breed in the same area?
I think it is population. The answer is C.
Yeah. So the right answer is C, population. Next question. Again, I'm going to give you options. So first, heterotroph. So the question is, which is the correct order in which the sun's energy gets transferred. Okay, so these are your options. Which is the correct one?
The third one.
Yeah. So it goes from autotrophs to heterotrophs and then decomposes. The next question is, what causes eutrophication? What is eutrophication first?
Ma'am, unwanted growth of species underwater caused by nitrifying bacteria.
Caused by nitrifying bacteria.
Yes. Or nitrogen related compounds.
So eutrophication is when there is excess growth of plants or maybe algae. Even planktons. When there is excess growth of algae and planktons, what happens is these organisms will grow, proliferate, and it will not allow sunlight to enter into the water. So what happens when sunlight doesn't enter water, and all of the fishes will die? So the oxygen excess growth of algae will not allow sunlight to penetrate, and it will also use up the oxygen. So what happens when there is depletion of oxygen? The aquatic organisms will die. So this is caused by the presence of nitrogen and phosphorus containing chemicals in the water. Okay, next we have a problem. So an insecticide, chlordane, that's the name of the insecticide, is found in a lake at a concentration of 560 micrograms per liter. Now you have to find the concentration of this chemical in fishes given your octanol water partition coefficient is 316,227.76. So before we go further, I want to tell you what is octanol water partition coefficient. So this is the concentration. Remember we talked something about hydrophobicity, right? That means how much of chemical is soluble in water. Hydrophobicity is how much of chemical is repelled by the water, and it is more soluble in other media than in water. So this KOW is somewhat related to it. Concentration in octanol divided by the chemical's concentration in water. So octanol is a substitute for fats in human body. So what this ratio tells us is if you have a chemical A, how much of this chemical is going to be soluble in fats and how much is going to be soluble in water. Why it is important to know? Because If you consume this A and it tends to have a higher KOW value, what does it mean? Its concentration is going to be high in fat, means it is going to be easily soluble in octanol or fat rather than in water. So its concentration in octanol is slightly higher than in water. What this means is, if you consume this chemical, it is going to dissolve and remain in your fat rather than get excreted by your body. So that's what this means. So if KOW is going to be more than 1, it means it is more soluble in octanol than it is soluble in water. Is that clear?
Yes, ma'am.
So now you tell me the concentration in the fish. And yeah, one more thing. This KOW is actually unitless. So because the concentration octanol happens to be a liquid and water also happens to be a liquid, the units for the numerator and the denominator is going to be the same. So it's going to cancel each other out. Now this KOW, doesn't it look very similar to the bioconcentration factor that we discussed? Actually, these two are related. So the log of bioconcentration factor is 0.79 into log of the octanol water partition coefficient minus 0.4. So can you tell me what is the bioconcentration factor now? You have the KOW value. You just have to substitute it here in this equation and find out what is the bioconcentration factor.
Something I'm getting around value of 39.
39.
Yes, but I'm not sure about the unit.
Can you redo the calculation again?
Yes, ma'am, getting the same.
Okay.
But I'm not sure about the unit. What should be the unit?
So what you have found is the log of BCF, right?
Yes, ma'am, 0.79 into log of this 316227.
Yeah, so now you have to find the anti-log if you want to know the bioconcentration factor. How much is that? What is the anti-log of 3.944?
Something coming like 8,790.
8,790. So what will be the units here? Bioconcentration factor has units of
kilogram per liter. I mean liter per kilogram.
yes. And can you tell me what is the formula of BCF? Bioconcentration factor is?
Ma'am, concentration of organism, pollutant concentration of organism divided by its concentration in environment.
Yes. So it is 8790. So organism here is what?
This chloro something.
That's the organism.
Yes, ma'am. It is organism. Yes, ma'am. This fluorodane, I think.
So what is this?
Yes, ma'am. Species are the organism.
So the question is, what is the concentration in the fish? So cross multiplying. What is CW or concentration in water?
590, 560 microgram per liter.
So 560 multiplied by 8790. Now before we multiply, we need to change the units here. So this is in micrograms per liter. And this is in liters per kg. Okay, you first multiply and tell me, then we'll change.
$49 lakhs 22,400.
49 lakhs
22,400.
22,400. Okay. So this many micrograms per kg. So can we represent in a slightly bigger unit? Like this is in micrograms. So since the number is big, it can very well accommodate into a larger unit.
We can say 4,922 milligram per kilogram.
Or we can maybe make it even bigger.
Gram. 4.9. 4.9. Yes.
Grams per kg. Okay. So we've come to the end of this class. So if you have any questions, let me know.
Ma'am, what if we convert this into kilogram by kilogram?
It's too small to get converted into a kilogram. You have to divide it by 1000. So then it will be 0.004.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. You can do it, but still it's a very small number for kilograms. So that's why we are writing in terms of grams. Okay, I hope you don't have any more questions. If you have, let me know in the next class. Okay, so thank you all for joining.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.